Hello and welcome to the in-depth series of Drishti IAS. My name is Pooja Dwivedi. Today we are going to talk about India's push, a strong push to become a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. India has been trying for decades to get this particular status symbol, as well as India deserves so. Why does it deserve to be a member of the UNSC? We will discuss that as well. So let us move ahead. As we know, the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly is going on. We are going to get a lot of important factual information as well as analytical information from the perspective of our upcoming prelims as well as mains examination. The current scenario we will discuss. We will also talk about the United Nations Security Council and the P5 members. We will discuss the issues with UNSC, India's bid for a permanent membership at the United Nations Security Council. Why does India want to be a part of the UNSC? That is also important. And what do the P5 actually want? Are there any covert actions as well? Any other solution if India does not get at an immediate effect, with an immediate effect if India doesn't become a part of the United Nations Security Council? Is there any other solution? So that also will be discussed. We will also talk about the question. The current scenario is that a country such as India goes unrepresented in such big organization like the United Nations Security Council, as in it is very unfair. We will talk about that. But a reformed UN-led multilateral system has been a point of vehement and vociferous demand for the India at this particular United Nations General Assembly session. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar participated in a meeting. This meeting is of the L9 Group of developing countries who are pro-reformist of UNSC. And this particular meeting was themed as reinvigorating multilateralism and achieving comprehensive reform of the United Nations Security Council. Also, very well outcome was there. Call to action joint statement has been there on reform. It might interest you if you're preparing for this particular examination. L69 group can be asked in your prelims or mains examination. Prelims is of course a bit for us. L69 is a group of pro-reformist of the United Nations Security Council. They want expansion, and it was formed in 2007. This year it celebrated its 15th anniversary. It represents certain countries from Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, Asia as well as the Pacific. And the L69 group is presently chaired by St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The countries, certain countries which are a part of L69 include the Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, Bhutan, Brazil, Bolivia, Burundi, Cabo Verde, Dominica, Grenada, and the rest. You can take a screenshot. Let's save time. Moving ahead, if we talk about the other important part is of course the UNSC. Once the UN was formed, it was deemed interesting that we should form specialized agencies and give them a task. One of the specialized agencies is the UN. The responsibility was immense to maintain international peace and security. And I hope we all know where the world stands right now. And as we say, UNSC, it held its first session on 17th January 1946 at Westminster, London. Then it moved to a more permanent base in New York, and it can hold sessions in any country. It's not like that it will conduct its session only in New York. It can hold, as it has in the past, held its sessions in many different countries as well. Moving ahead, if we talk about more precisely what are the actual powers of the UNSC, please go through them. To call on members to apply economic sanctions and other measures not involving the use of force to prevent or stop aggression. So, aggression cannot be stopped by aggression. This is one of the major principles of UNSC. And sanctions, economic sanctions tend to paralyze any economy so that it cannot carry on the war. It can do that. Military action can also be taken against the aggressor. Recommend the admission of new members can be done by it. To exercise the trusteeship function of the UN in strategic areas, okay? To recommend to the General Assembly the appointment of the Secretary General together with the Assembly, of course. to elect the judges of the International Court of Justice. All members of the UN agree to accept and carry on the mandates of the Security Council. So this is the power of UNSC. And only the Security Council has the power to make decisions that member states are then obligated to implement. So it's an all-powerful institution. Moving ahead, let's talk about the United Nations membership. So it has 15 members, 5 are permanent, 10 are non-permanent. India for the 8th time has entered the UNSC as a non-permanent member in 2021. Each year, the General Assembly elects 5 non-permanent members out of 10 in total for a 2-year term. Apart from that, the 10 non-permanent seats are distributed on a regional basis for better representation. The Council's presidency is a capacity that rotates every month among 15 members. So remember this as well. Moving ahead, let's talk about the permanent 5 members. Now, permanent 5 members include the USA, China, France, Russia, and the UK. On what basis have they become the permanent 5? The permanent 5, according to the Oppenheim's international law, were those countries which were immensely important after the World War II. So we see that this has led to UNSC become frozen in time. Many people say that it's a frozen in time institution. It still behaves like it is in 1945. Moving ahead, non-permanent members for a 2-year term, that are 10. These are, as I told you, distributed according to regions. From Africa we have 3, from Asia we have 2, from Latin America again 2, Western European and others 2, and Eastern Europe has 1. The Security Council has the primary responsibility within the UN of maintaining international peace and security. The difference comes when the P5 has a power of veto. What is veto power? Veto power is basically the power to prohibit any resolution being passed at the United Nations. If even one country out of the permanent 5 members exercises the veto powers, the resolution to take any action becomes negligible. This is the power each and every particular country of the P5 has. Moving ahead, let's talk about the issue with the veto power. Now, due to use of veto, UNSC at times failed to fulfill its responsibility to maintain peace according to the G4 nation. Now, this is actually true. We will know about that as well. Who are the G4? G4 is a group of countries including Japan, Germany, Brazil, and India. These are the 4 countries which support each other's bid for the permanent membership at the United Nations Security Council. So G4 has accused them, and that is of course a problem. We need to understand that during drafting of the Charter of the Future United Nations 1944 to 1945, the UNSC as well as the power of veto was the most controversial as well as the most debated one. But the UK said back then, the British representative said, you should either have a United Nation with veto or not have a UN at all. The Indian side said it is better to have an imperfect United Nations rather than not having one at all. And here we are. Moving ahead, as we see that yes, the veto power has time and again failed to maintain peace and security around the world. In the sense, the invasion of Iraq by the US in 2003 was unable to be condemned because of US using its veto power at the United Nations. Russian invasion of Ukraine saw the same fate. We are saying that China is also a part of the permanent 5, so the similar fate can go for the China invasion of Taiwan if it occurs. And several times it was seen that United Nations remarkably failed and became underwhelming. Basically, it was underwhelmed when time and again Israel was protected against Palestine. As of February 2022, Russia has used its veto 118 times, US 82 times, UK 29 times, France 16 times, and China 17 times. So you see that it has become frozen in time, as of course, whenever there was a need to actually maintain peace and security and tranquility around the world, the hegemony of the permanent five used its power, actually I should say abused its power of veto. Moving ahead, we must know that there are certain other issues with the UNSC, such as it does not maintain any record or text of its meeting. Power play in the UNSC has obstructed many important resolutions, and this is specifically for the permanent five only. Division among the permanent five itself: Russia against US, US against China, China against US. This is because of the permanent five members, as they have abused their position, their all-powerful position in the permanent five. This has made the other countries look up to them as nothing else but doing just perpetuating the imperialistic issues. And that is the problem over here. The power is so asymmetric that the actual countries, the countries that actually matter right now, they are not getting their share of representation. And this is, of course, now manifested in an underrepresented organization, as the permanent members always tend to hover over the non-permanent members. Moving ahead, let's talk about India's bid for UNSC. Now, India's UN ambassador Rajesh Mishra moved a resolution at the UNGA in 1979 not to become a part of the permanent membership, but try to reform the UNSC in the sense we can expand the membership not for permanent but for a temporary period of time. But P5 denied the entire position. In 1998, when India made a move that surprised the entire world, the nuclear test, India made its position very clear on the world map. And by the year 2010, it was seen that India is a responsible nuclear power. India has become powerful, but it is not abusing its power. The legitimacy for India's bid for the UNSC permanent seat came first from Barack Obama's visit to India in 2010. Suddenly, those countries which were providing cold shoulder to India, such as UAE, Syria, and China, started supporting India's bid for UNSC. And right now, Japan, Germany, India, Brazil, these countries are seen as potential candidates for the UNSC. These are the G4 countries as well. Now, currently for India, USA, Russia, Ukraine, Sri Lanka, these are the France, Japan are the countries, of course, in addition to the above countries, who are providing full support for India's membership at the UNSC. Moving ahead, now why should India become a part of the UNSC? India took active part in the formulation of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and providing the entire world with peace and security is one of the mandates of UDHR. And of course, India has played its part in formulating decisions on several issues that go from maintaining peace and tranquility in the entire globe, and especially if we talk about putting sanctions for apartheid as well. It has contributed extensively in the peacekeeping missions. India has worked with the UN in myriad peacekeeping missions, more than 49 peacekeeping missions. It has provided more than 1,95,000 troops. Apart from that, 168 lives were sacrificed whenever we are talking about peacekeeping missions by India. It's the largest by any country. Moving ahead, India's population, territorial size, GDP. India becomes the 5th largest economy and still is not represented in the permanent membership of the UNSC is beyond anything. Economic potential, civilizational history, as well as cultural diversity, these all call for India's permanent membership, as well as India has become a technological hub as well. Now, the primary advantage that India could solicit from garnering a membership in the UNSC is, of course, to become a major player in the global affairs. Right now, we see India has a proxy in the name of Russia. See, if we talk about veto power, it has been used in favor of India by Russia on myriad issues. And of course, on the Kashmir issue, when there were resolutions passed for the Kashmir issue in 1957, 1962, 1971, when it was said that UN should intervene in the matter of Kashmir, then Russia stopped it by exercising its veto. So India could, if it becomes a part of the UNSC, it can become more vociferous. Apart from that, A permanent seat would give India leverage with other nations, which could be very beneficial to India in its own trade deals as well as soft powers. For getting a permanent seat, many countries could come to India, give us better deals, as well as India could share the support for them at the UNSC, and India might, for some other country, become a proxy itself. But of course, India will continue its foreign policy to be neutral. Now, actually, the problem is covertly, many countries might not want reformation of the P5, the UNSC, because who wants to give up their power? Nobody. So, right now, as we see that 4 countries, they do support India's permanent membership for the UNSC, such as US, UK, Russia, and France. But they all know that China would not accept India as a permanent member of the UNSC, as well as Japan as well. Japan will also be blocked by China. So they find that they are safe when it comes to supporting India. They will be very vocal with respect to India's membership, but they also know that China won't let it happen. Actual on the ground, they might not do anything. Moving ahead, let's talk about if there is any other solution. Now see, amending the charter is a big problem because there is a need of consent of 2/3 of the total membership of the UN, including the conquering votes of the P5. That means all the members of the P5 will have to vote in favor of it. That means that each of the 5 has a veto also, because of course in such case China would come into the picture. Charter was amended once in the 1960s to enlarge the council by additional non-permanent seats. But the problem is that difficulty is such, veto power could be used, difficulty is such, we have to understand from this example that the enemy clause has not been amended as of yet, which is supported by Article 107. Many countries who are enemy countries according to this clause, such as Germany, Japan, Italy, are active members of the UN, and many members, they are working with their opponents in the World War II. So you can see how difficult it is. Moving ahead, a new category of semi-permanent members should be created. This could give a transition. Also, it could be a test bed for testing which countries are perfect for a permanent membership. Countries would be elected for a period of 8 to 10 years, and they would be eligible for re-election, giving them more representation and more voice in the world and symmetry to the entire globe as well. India ought to give serious consideration to this particular idea. And if there is any proposal that India be made a part of the permanent member of the UNSC P5, then what happens that India should consider it if veto power is given to India. Otherwise, it will be just a status symbol. No teeth will be available to India. Now, the question for today is discuss India's position in getting closer to permanent membership at the UNSC in 250 words. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Stay updated.